Hello everyone, and I am DJ Goldenchild, and welcome to the Otto Let's Talk podcast. You got one happy guy today after the North London derby, but do you know what? Before I get into all of that, I'm going to pass you to our host, Mr. AudioGeek.
Hello guys, welcome back. Episode 4. I'm very pleased to welcome back Snells. Snells, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry for the absence, but don't ask big man questions.
Well, you're back. That's all that counts. Usually I introduce the guest, but I think it would only be fitting, considering that all three of you are Arsenal fans and know each other. I think it would be quite fitting if DJ Goldenchild, you introduce our guest.
This week is an absolute living legend. He's known at the Emirates as the Clock End Tony, one of the loudest supporters in the library. I'm going to pass you over to him. Tone, how you doing?
We're the Clock and the Clock and the Clock and Ivory. I'm doing great, Greg, and what a fantastic Sunday. I can't tell you how happy this Gooner is.
To hear. Al, what's going on?
So yeah, we'll get to the results soon. I think that was the game that I had to cover, but it would be sacrilege if I covered that game with three Gooners on a podcast. But from what I saw from it and what I can gather in terms of the result, marred in a little bit of controversy, and obviously marred with the talks of Pierre, Eric Aubameyang, hence the name of the pod, but we'll get to that soon. But what we will start with is the combat sports roundup. So I'm going to pass you over to Gravy for the boxing, and I'm going to pass you to Chris for the UFC, so he can fill you in last week's and this week's.
Yeah, well, Al,
fights.
Thanks for that. You know what? Boxing. I have to start with some sad news, as there was the passing of marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest middleweight boxers of all time, and he passed away on the 13th of March at the age of 66. And apparently it was a surprise because he had no illness. But this man, can I just say some of his accomplishments? He was reigning undisputed middleweight champion from 1980 to 1987, making 12 successful defenses. He holds the highest knockout percentage of all undisputed middleweights at 78%. And he is the third longest unified champion of all time in history, with 12 consecutive defeats. And you know what? For those UK listeners, Hagler didn't have his first world title shot to his 50th fight, and that was a draw, which I watched that fight actually, and he won it. But when he did win his world title, it was on UK shores at Wembley Arena in 1980 September, and it was against Alan Minster, who was a British middleweight champion, and said a famous quote before the fight that no black fighter would ever beat him. And he got stopped. It was meant to go 15 rounds, and he got stopped in the third. And it was marred by very, very bad scenes of the UK fans turning on Hagler and started chucking bottles and chairs into the ring at him. He had to get police escorted out the building. He was called all sorts of racial names. And I'm so proud to say that British fans now have changed, but that's what he went through, and that was in his 54th fight. He was an absolute legend and definitely be missed. And if you can go back and watch any of his fights, he was part of the Four Kings, which was Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, and obviously Marvin Hagler. And may he rest in peace. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say on him. I'm going to pass you over to Chris for the rest of the boxing and combat sports.
Yo, that was a very, very fitting tribute. The guy was a living legend. And now he's going to be remembered as one of the best to ever do it. Truly a goat. Right, so where do we start really? Like boxing wise, there's nothing really that anyone is going to want to talk about coming up. And I suppose the main thing that's coming up is Povetkin Dillian, isn't it, for the interim WBC? Like that's the thing.
Joshua Fury fight that's apparently been signed off. Big news.
Yeah, that was signed today, wasn't it?
Signed already though, ages ago.
Allegedly there's a two fight deal, but we'll wait and see when that actually happens, because we've seen scenes before where fights are announced but no dates are announced, and it all kind of gets put on the back burner, and it does kind of make a bit of a mockery of it. I think I saw a couple of comments on it saying, imagine if like MMA did this. Yeah, it's like you're either so confident that you're going to win that you're willing to give that person a rematch, or you're saying, I might lose the first one. Let me run it back.
For real. I think they're both a bit worried. It sounds like
it's a money thing, though, isn't it? It's a money. And plus,
Yeah, yes, it's a money thing. I mean, and all the British fighters are going to be turning. All the sort of like Eddie Hearn British fighters are going to be turning out soon. Like we've got a Coley fighting. I think he's fighting next week. It's this weekend, isn't it? Yeah, Glowacki's fighting him for the WBO. And you got Anthony Fowler fighting again, the hype train that was derailed by what was his name? Madman Fitzgerald. Yeah. Beterbiev fighting some German lad, Deans, who I'd be honest, I don't know.
Coley going for his first.
Probably stop him quite convincing. It's probably a mandatory defense on
this weekend. That's going to be a big fight.
Hopefully he'll get it done. He'll get it done. So really, everyone's just kind of waiting to see when Joshua and Fury actually gets announced, and we'll kind of go from there. We've got Frampton coming up. He's trying to become the first 3-weight world champion from Ireland, which considering, Northern Ireland, sorry, so given their fighting heritage, I'm quite surprised that they've never had a 3-weight world champion. But given the fact that he's 5'6", if that, would be quite impressive if he can do it at super featherweight. And then so MMA. Really, the only MMA fights of note all occurred last weekend, which obviously I missed. I'm sure Al, despite the fact that you've thrown it to me this week, I imagine you're going to want to chirp in because we had
it was a very watered down version.
We had our predictions, didn't we? And I think we both got several wrong.
I said Sterling would win. I said that Nunes would win, and I said Adesanya would win. So I was completely off. Yeah, I mean Sterling won by technicality. That's kind I suppose so.
That's really held up the bantamweight division. That kind of sour taste in the mouth. Like they have properly got a paper champ at the moment. Like no one wants to see anyone win by DQ. So that they need to run that back. Dana White needs to come out and say you're running it back, or I'm stripping you, and we're having a new title fight soon because it was a deep
and mainly
fight.
Because he was losing as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And we've got another Khabib, haven't we? Oh, Islam Makhachev.
That was something else. Drew
Dober is a very capable low to middle rank contender. Like he's definitely a very worthy opponent for anyone trying to come up through the division, and he dispatched of him in disgusting manner. It was us. Drew Dober is not the sort of man when you look at him. If anyone doesn't really know who Drew Dober is, have a little Google and have a look at the size of this man and think this guy was ragdolled for 3 rounds, utterly ragdolled. Not just technically, but just out-strengthed. Really, it's the only way I can really describe it. He was just outmanned. Pardon the turn, but he was just thrown around, beaten up. It's horrible.
It's just this crop of fight, these Dagestani fighters. I think if anybody's lucky enough to get into those training camps, my goodness, what you would learn. Because it's just the same. It's the same thing over again, isn't it? They just know what you're going to do. They're going to take you down. They're going to beat you up, and there's nothing you can do about it. Genuinely nothing you can do about it.
Iron sharpens iron, doesn't it? So they're all trading. All Khabib's waxed lyrical about Islam and said, he's going to be the next guy. So I'll be honest, I didn't see much of the Santos Rakic fight, but I'm not surprised by the result. Santos is another one of these light heavyweight hype trains that's just not delivered, like Anthony Smith. And
Rakic was on the front foot, but
who was the other one? Who was the other light heavyweight that they were really hyping up? Crazy Brazilian with the mohawk.
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker, yeah. I can see why John Jones moved up, but it also, touching on that, also shows how difficult it is to move up weight when you get to the bigger weights and actually be able to sustain power there, because Izzy was found wanting. Blachowicz had far more power, was more comfortable later in the rounds, got the takedowns and got the decision, and I don't think anyone had any real issues with it other than the fact that it was just a bit lame.
I think for a super
fight, was it just played out quite dull.
Yeah, I think the issue with Izzy was he come in quite light, didn't he? He come in at 200 pounds, 201.
Light, and the weight made a difference. He spent too much time on his back.
Yeah, he said he came in light because he didn't want to lose his speed, but unfortunately, and his precision. And unfortunately, he was quick, he was precise, but it just proved that he just wasn't strong enough. So you can, so those precision strikes didn't weigh Blachowicz down at all. he kind of just walked through them and then sat him down. I don't, and I don't think anything negative should be said about that. I think
he took a shot, didn't he? He shot his shot.
Oh, massively. And if these losses are going to be the things that are going to shape him as a fighter, as Gravy said before, we put too much emphasis on the O, and actually this will make him a much better fighter. He's cleaned out the middleweight division. I think we're going to see him back at light heavyweight. Possibly not while Blachowicz is champion. I don't really think Blachowicz will stay champion for long, if I'm honest.
He needs to spend a bit of time in the weight to get himself used to it.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be champion for long, because I think, a heavier Izzy, a bit more power, he might have got it done, but
no one really wants to see that run. No one really wants to see that run back straight away. But likewise, who does Izzy fight at light heavyweight below him that generates
exactly?
It's an awkward one. Just one very quick touch on the prelim. Dominic Cruz finally got a win after his long layoff and his attempt.
And then went a bit mental afterwards.
Yeah,
calling out people that work for Monster.
I think he's done. If I'm honest, like he got his win. He's proven that after the long layoff he can come back. But it was a split decision against an unranked opponent, and who's he going to fight? Maybe there'd be some interest in him fighting TJ, because TJ's a long layoff and there's a bit of bad blood there.
Yeah, but I don't want to see TJ. The guy's a cheat, and he's got the cheek to run his mouth against Sterling. I don't want to see him up there. I think he's tarnished his reputation.
We don't want to see it on a personal level, but from a fighting point of view,
maybe
it'd be interesting. Cat amongst pigeons. Right, so the last weekend's card. Oh Lord, Dana must have been pulling out what was left of his hair. Another main event just stinking out the place, like Leon and Belal not even making a round. Just for what it was worth, Leon was picking him apart and probably would have had a very, very wide majority decision unless Belal managed to get on the front foot. But Leon was not letting that happen. And then, if any of you have seen the eye poke, the accidental eye poke, it's just horrible. They should
cut his eyelid, doesn't it?
It's not the first time that this has happened in the UFC. UFC really should be looking at the gloves that they use in, dare I say it, Bellator. I think the ones that
Pride. They mentioned the ones in Pride. Yeah,
Pride. The ones where they're curved at the end. I'm sure you probably will all have seen on socials where it just, there's a natural bend in the glove and it just curves the fingers forward. It'll make a big difference. These gloves are obviously lighter to probably try and show that it's purer and that people are strong and they're not padded, etc. But there's a lot of eye pokes, and it's only going to take someone to lose their sight from an eye poke, an accidental eye poke, and then sue the UFC for not giving them the proper equipment. And then,
Bisping hasn't got any sight in his eye, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's gonna someone is gonna lose their sight. I mean, it was horrible. It really does make you cringe when you see the still image of how deep his finger is in his eye. Goodness me. Yeah, the main event was a bit of a draw. Dan 50k whatever I'm not quite sure how you pronounce his last name. I'm not really sure where this guy's come from, if I'm honest, because he's in a fairly stacked division down in it's featherweight, isn't he? He's featherweight.
Yeah.
And he got very, very lucky against, in my opinion anyway, he got very, very lucky in a decision against Edson Barboza, who I thought won the fight. It was a split decision, but since then he's kind of racked them up. And I mean, a 22-second KO is kind of a statement, isn't it, against a very well thought of prospect. So it'd be interesting to see who they match him up with next. And you've got Davey Grant, who's got his third KO in a row against Jonathan Martinez. That was a very, very technical combo for any of you that like your striking and your stand up. He switched starts, went down, up, sort of reversed it all, and Martinez did not have a clue what was going on, did not see it coming. It's anyone in combat sports will tell you it's the ones you don't see that hurt the most. And that was all she wrote. Yeah. Obviously Darren Stewart, Eric Anders, another illegal knee blow, which we're all a bit bored of seeing.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads us nicely to what we got coming up this weekend, which is it's Brunson versus Holland, isn't it?
Yeah.
Holland, who's kind of made a bit of a comeback, and Derek Brunson, who's kind of underappreciated mainly because of what Izzy did to him on his debut. But that should be a decent, looking at the card, it should be decent. Like Gregor Gillespie is a very highly thought of wrestler. Then be looking to see if he can make a push. You got Tired Savasa fighting again, who's a bit of a crowd favourite, but he does shoeies like most of the Pacific, which is just a bit jank. For those of you that don't know what a shoey is, bearing in mind they were still doing this during recent COVID times. It's where you take your shoe off, pour a beer in it, and then drink the beer out of your shoe. I don't care if that's a box fresh trainer. That is nasty.
Yeah, that's nasty.
That is nasty. You weren't raised if you do that. You were dragged up. And I would have got a slap for doing that still. But other than that, you've probably got some big fights coming up. Be looking at seeing what happens with great interest in the next couple of months with Stipe and Ngannou. That's got to be soon.
Yeah,
isn't it?
That's the big one we're talking about, really. I think the only other issue that's come out of this last fight is, I think Leon Edwards' brother's come out and said that basically the division are running scared of him. And I know it's all hype train stuff, but apparently Covington had a chance to come in when Bilal did, and he just turned it down. And I think ranking wise, I think Edwards is second. I think with above him is it's Gilbert Burns and Covington.
There's no reward in fighting Leon. He doesn't sell tickets. He's not a pay-per-view star. He's got a massive win streak. He's a problem for anyone in the top 5. He's smart. He fights very smart. He's not the most entertaining, but he's tall. He's rangy. He's a good technical striker. I mean,
maybe there is truth in that then.
Yeah. Where's the reward for these guys? Like, it's quite clear. People like Colby and stuff. Colby wants the money, and like Gilbert Burns wants the title shot, but he needs time out because Kamaru just battered him.
Yeah,
just battered him. So it's kind of held up a little bit at the top. So it needs someone like Bilal to come in.
I don't want a Covington Kamaru replay. I don't want that. I think he dispatched him quite well. He broke his jaw, for God's sake.
Yeah, he did. There's obviously that animosity, and you look at how the fight was going. There was that very questionable sort of like timeout where Kamaru was saying he got a low blow, and then you look at the replay and you're like, really, it just looks like a really well placed sort of liver shot. But yeah, he did. He obviously, it was without repute what happened. Like, did quite literally break his face, which he said he was going to do. So props for that. But that matchup is surely more deserving of running it back, given the slight controversy with some of how it played out than Mr. Masvidal, who had the greatest, what was it, 2019? He had the greatest 2019, maybe the greatest year that anyone's had in recent times other than Conor. And then fought Kamaru on a week's notice, and then got fully dominated for 5 rounds as we expected, and then has done nothing since. Yeah. Other than rock up at the odd event wearing his.
Although I think they're fighting again, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they've signed a second one
when they go back to crowds.
Which is not actually like long ago. It gives them about a 5-week camp, which knowing how Masvidal lives outside of training camp, is going to spend at least 3 weeks of that cutting weight. At least 3 weeks of that cutting weight, because he's another one like Nate, just walks around balloon.
Yeah, really big. Yeah,
spends most of his camp having to cut weight as opposed to actually drilling foot tactics for his opponent. So be an interesting one. But yeah, I think that'll be our roundup complete.
Yeah, quite comprehensive considering we didn't have it last week, so a bit longer than usual. But yeah, I think that hits a nail on the head. So just to wrap up the first half, I'm going to go through the results of the football in Europe.
You know what I'm going to say? Please like, share, comment, and you know what? Become a fan. And if you want to get on this podcast and represent your team, then please send us an email. Sorry, Al.
No worries. Let's quickly run through the results from the weekend across Europe and the WSL, so we can move on to the more juicier topics. But everyone's been waiting to hear about, correct, the 1-0 victory of Man United versus West Ham. Anyway, so in La Liga this week, Atletico played twice. They played on Wednesday and beat Bilbao 2-1. Suarez got a penalty there. They played again on the weekend and drew with Getafe. Madrid came back from a scare against Elche. They got 2 late goals from Karim Benzema to finish that game 2-1. Barca played yesterday, beat Huesca 4-1. Messi popping up, getting 2 goals there.
Rude.
So did
Rude goal.
Mr. Antoine Griezmann got a goal there. So that leaves, Atletico in first, Barca second with 4 points behind them, and then Madrid behind them in third, and Sevilla in fourth. Serie A, Lazio and Atalanta picked up wins over Crotone and Spezia, respectively. Napoli surprisingly beat Milan at the San Siro, so that's good news for United fans. Juve put the disappointment of the Champions League exit behind them and beat Cagliari 3-1. I think Diego Simeone's son scored in that game, so bit of fat there for you. Also scoring that game was Cristiano Ronaldo. He got a first half hat-trick. Inter beat Torino 2-1, a goal apiece for the front two for Inter, and Parma beat Roma 2-1 also, meaning Inter stay first with a nice 9-point lead ahead of Milan in second. Juve are a point behind Milan in third and a game in hand, and Atalanta take up fourth. Atalanta also in action tonight against Real Madrid in the Champions League, which we'll get to shortly. Ligue A, which I didn't really report on last week, but has taken a little bit of a nice turn. Lyon drew with Reims and Marseille beat Rennes 1-0. They also, later on during the week, beat Brest 3-1. Monaco drew with the top leaders Lille, and PSG lost at home to Nantes. So Pochettino got off to a little bit of a rocky start here. So that loss puts them 3 points behind Lille, who are at the top, and Lyon are level with points with PSG second and third, Monaco in fourth. On to the WSL. City and Chelsea advanced to the next round of the Women's Champions League with victories over Fiorentina and Atletico respectively. Everton beat Birmingham 4-0. First goal for the West Ham loanee Alicia Lehmann. Spurs drew with Reading 0-0, and Chelsea lift the Continental League Cup with a 6-0 victory over Bristol City. A hat-trick for Sam Kerr, 2 goals and 4 assists for player of the match and England forward Fran Kirby. So, just to wrap up our football, we've got Champions League on tonight. City take on Gladbach. That looks like a next round for City. And as we talk, Real Madrid and Atalanta are getting ready to kick off, and that's quite a tight game as well. And tomorrow, Bayern Munich take on Lazio. They already got a 4-1 lead, so that's going to be quite simple for them. Chelsea take on Atletico with a 1-0 lead at home. So let's see what they are made of. And that, my friends, is the comprehensive roundup of the European results and the end of our first half.